it goes up. Yeah.
No, I mean you can keep the
You finished teaching?
No, I started.
Oh, good. Sri Rama. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Bhagavate Vaivasvataya Mrityave Brahma Vidyacharya Nachiketase cha Upanishad Shabdena
Upanishad Shabdena
Cha
Cha
Vyachikhyasita
Vyachikhyasita
Grantha
Grantha
Pratipadya
Pratipadya
Vedya Vastu Vishaya
Vedya Vastu Vishaya
Vidya Uchyate.
Vidya Uchyate.
So he says, what is the connection with this word Upanishad, which is formed by having three components? What are the three components? Four components. One is the root verb itself, which is Sad, Shad, and then you have the three components that are operating upon the root verb, two in the form of prefixes, which are they? Ni. And one in the form of the suffix. What is that? Quip. It's equipped with quip. Then no one can forget. So then this word, which was whose derivation was just given, Upanishad Shabdena, by this word, what is there? He says, what is there in this word, or what is referred to by this word, is none other than what I wish to show through this grantha. And what do I wish to show by this grantha? Self-knowledge. This vidya alone is the meaning of the word Upanishad. Just some random word you take and you put upani and then sad and then say, oh, this is equal to self-knowledge. How? This is a huge claim, correct? And so he can't get away with it. So he's going to elucidate how the word Upanishad comes to mean self-knowledge. Because there must be some connection. You can't just say sad means destruction. Destruction of what? Sad means loosening or dissipation. Dissipation of what? Sad upa means near. Near what? Ni means definitely, certainly. Certainly what? It could also mean food. Definitely when I approach food, upa, near, definitely what happens? Hunger is destroyed. What does this have to do with knowledge? But he says that the word Upanishad traditionally means self-knowledge. It's not that, upa and ni can be taken any definite approach. Because definitely I can approach the buffet, and then what happens? First the thought of the food loosens up the juices, and then what? Destroys the hunger, atyantikena, absolutely. No, that is not what is this thing. The word Upanishad means self-knowledge. He says there is no difference between the word and what it is trying to show. And that's what he's going to elucidate, because a case needs to be made for it. So he elucidates it in the form of either you can say a hidden purva paksha, a hidden objection, or he elucidates it by asking a rhetorical question for himself and then answering it. Kena punaha arthayogena Upanishad Shabdena Vidya Uchyate Ityuchyate. Yeah, so Kena punaha, then again, by what means do we associate knowledge? Knowledge, Vidya here only means self-knowledge, and also little bit of whatever the means to gain the self-knowledge are also included. So how is this association between the word Upanishad Shabdena, and the knowledge that it represents come to be? How is it connected? If you have that question, he says, I will elucidate. Nothing much to talk about that, that's all. He's raising a question. Like that we say, how come this happened? Well, you need to know this, And any question you ask, how come you are here? Well, I have to teach at noon, so this is what it is. So, how come you are not here? Well, something happened on the way. So, so many things. So, sometimes you yourself raise the question. Like, oh, I wonder why that connection is. And if you are also wondering that, this is the answer. And he says, Ye mumukshavaha
mumukshavaha
drishta anushravika
drishta anushravika
vishaya vitrishnaha santaha
vichaya vitrishnaha santa
upanishad shabdavachyam
upanishad shabdavachyam
vakshyamana lakshanam
vakshyamana lakshanam
vidyam
vidyam
upasadya
upasadya
upagamya
upagamya
tannishtataya
tannishtadaya
niश्चयेन
निश्चयेन
शीलयन्ति
शीलयन्ति
तेषाम्
तेषाम्
अविद्यादेहे
अविद्यादेहे
संसारबीजस्य
संसारबीजस्य
विशरणाद्
विशरणात्
हिंसनाद्
हिंसनात्
हिंसनाद्
हिंसनात्
विनाशात्
विनाशात्
इत्यनेन
इत्यनेन
अर्थयोगेन
अर्थयोगेन
विद्या
विद्या
उपनिषद् इति उच्यते.
उपनिषदिति उच्यते.
And that was one sentence. So, he makes a very strong, very precise and a powerful case for this by saying those mumukshus. Who are these mumukshus? Those mumukshus. Huh? These mumukshus. Yeah. Same. Those mumukshus means the ones he is talking about who will be studying the Bhashya, who are studying the Upanishad. Who are they? Everyone here. So those mumukshus are these mumukshus. See? Mahavakya. And so those mumukshus means who are these mumukshus? He is going to elucidate what is a mumukshu. Drishta means with reference to Drishteshu means with reference to what is seen. Correct? And then Anushravikeshu with reference to what is heard. So what is seen? All the sights, everything. And what is heard? Don't say all the sounds. No. Whatever that is not seen is heard. Whatever cannot be seen. Because the sight is Mula Pramana. Yeah. Don't say first what is, what is seen, movie, with reference to movies, and what is heard, iTunes. Don't go like that, Means what is seen means whatever is experienced in this world. This is seen is Upalakshana for what is experienced in this world. And everything that is, and sight here means everything that can be directly experienced. That is the metaphorical meaning of sight. Drishteshu with reference to all that can be directly experienced by what? By the sense organs. Yeah. And Anushravikeshu, what is then what is heard is what? What is rest of it? What is it that you cannot see and directly experience?
What cannot be objectified, which is the self.
No, don't go that far yet. So, but you can hear it, you cannot see it. It is says Anushravikeshu, with that which is heard but not seen. What is heard but not seen? Don't say children. Yeah.
Beyond the senses?
Beyond the senses. What is kind of beyond the senses, but we are not talking of the self here. The favorite destination of all religions.
Oh, the Shwarga?
The tourist guide, the glossy tourist book. Yeah. Which says, go here. And you can be here, not you are here. You can be here. What if you follow this religion? Where is that? Heaven. How do you know it? Have you been there? Anyone has been there? Then how do you know it? It is Anushravika Vishaya. It is, I have heard of it. How? Because I was born in a Christian family. I was born in a, Hindu family that was heaven bound. Even Hindus have Swarga. You don't have to just do any effort to be born in a Christian family. Hindus have their own Swarga. Only thing is we don't say it's eternal. Yeah. You, the eternal one, desiring the non-eternal, they can go there. That's all. For a little while. So, Drishteshu, Vastushu. So, of all the objects and that are exemplified objectified right here, right now. Drishta has an immediacy, an effect of immediacy, like what is available right here, right now. What you can just order from, Taste of India right now, or from Amazon, little bit different, but it's available right here, So what is available right here, right now, comes under the rubric of Drishta, that has a sense of immediacy in it, meaning wherever it is in the world, especially with the technology that we have at the tips today, the fingertips today, you can get things. You can get things from India, you can get things from, even if you don't know the meaning of the word, you Google it, and then along with the definition, because this is a capitalist economy, 5-6 sites will come up where to buy that. Yeah. And if you Google Upanishad, it will tell you where to buy the books on Upanishad. Yeah. So drishta means anything that is seen, And then anushravika means heard in accordance with how you are meant to hear it. I wish I could go to heaven with that longing. The anu here means along with the longing that is heard, in keeping with other the traditional way of looking at the religions, the limited way of looking at the religious goals presented by the religion. Here in this case, the first portion of the Veda he is talking about. And everybody has heaven. In his time there was Buddhism. Buddhists also have their own heaven and Naraka, hell. My God, their hell is worse than any Hindu hell. There are there is, where is that? Some caves, Dambula caves. You've gone there? Yeah. Did you see all the depictions of the hell there? Frightening. They have all these 3D clay figures, nicely painted, lot of red, lot of blood. And then you have these lances piercing from the front, from the back. The fellow is hung upside down by one leg. And then Yama is putting coals in the fire. No, Yama won't do that. His assistant. And then Yama is putting this hot spear into the fire. The assistant is putting coals. And then in another scene, that hot spear is going back, back and forth with various body parts. It is just, lancing this body, and there's lot of red globs down here. This is, this is the Buddhist version of Naraka, various, and they have gradations of hell. Like if you tell one lie, where do you go? And then if you tell, if you do like a hedge fund problem, a big lie, where everyone's money is gone and peace of mind is gone and people's savings are all gone, and then people are cursing you like that Madoff, Madoff, people who are very mad with him. That's why his name is Madoff. These are not accidental. And he's sitting in the prison, I think he's got 117 years of imprisonment for this, and he's already 78. And so it's very clear he's not going to come out anytime soon. And so that kind of, now already he is suffering in the prison, but then afterwards, if he suddenly became a Buddhist, where would he go? He would go to this, the hot spear, and then, for one lie you just have, a few assistants of Yama whipping you, that is, this is gradations of Naraka, and then gradations of Swarga. Swarga means that some kind of a, holiday elsewhere, where you don't have to, sweep up, you don't have to, cleaners come and clean up, shine up all surfaces. Food appears magically. And then when you ingest the food, you don't have to eat it, because that's effort. And then you have to hope it gets digested. That's another effort. But in Swarga, you don't have any stomach. What? What a boring place. No, very interesting. Because no stomach means no stomach upset. Yeah. Don't ever have to go to the bathroom. Yeah. So that is, it's cheaper to build condos in Swarga, because you don't need attached or otherwise bathroom. No bathroom needed. Because no stomach upset. And how do you take the nourishment? You just sniff your way to heaven. So you don't have to do anything. All the food will be cooked, and then it will just pass your room, and you go, just like the Devatas do, you say Pranaya Swaha, Apanaya Swaha, and they go, aha. That's what it is. Devaha Paroksha Priyaha. So when you offer the food, what do? You say Swaha to all the 5 life forces, cosmic life forces, and finished. They are satisfied. That's why when you build a shrine, it doesn't have to have attached bathroom for Bhagavan, especially if he has to survive on your cooking. So this is a very good thing. So the Swarga is like that. And so Anushravikeshu means with reference to everything that is heard. This is what is heard because it cannot be directly experienced. That's why glossy brochures in the form of various religions come and knock on the door and say, if you follow us, you will go to this kind of heaven. And if you don't follow, you will go to that kind of hell. In both ways. Anushravika. And then what? If you follow us, this is the goal. And in fact, they will, rub out the non-eternal and just say, this is eternity. This is what you're longing for. The only catch is, you are looking for something which is not available here. You need a tour guide to elsewhere. And for that, we are famous. Why? Because we have taken so many jivas. We just don't have testimonials because they are unable to give it once they go there. But trust us. Yeah. This is called shady deal religions, where they present the eternal in a beautiful basket, attractive looking basket. And then the only problem is it's not available right here, right now. But if you want to have a consultation about how to come to heaven, we will sit with you. This is called, what is it called? Catechism, gospel, whatever it is, Why is it called gospel? Because you go under their spell. That is all it is. So, that's all it is. You go under the spell. And then there are stories, if you didn't do this, what happened? And we have our own versions. Why blame other religions? We have our own versions. Elephant gained moksha, and then you can also gain moksha. After all, you are better than an elephant. So we will teach you how to say Narayana, Narayana, and then and then you will gain moksha. And what is moksha? You just do cha-cha-cha or ta-thai with Rambha and Urvashi. You go to dance concerts and you are just there. You don't have core issues. You get along with everyone. It's like a cruise, like a cruise without any, viruses. Yeah. These days nobody wants to go on cruise. Yeah. Unless you want to invite Lord Yama, into your quarters. Nobody goes on cruise because 4,000 people, my God, somebody told me, 4,000 people. And what do you do? Well, there is 7 floors in this ship. I said, in the ship there are floors? I said, if one floor works properly, the bottommost one, we are happy because we don't want any contact with the ocean. No, there are 7 floors in this ship. 7 floors. What do they do? It's like a sky riser. Yes, it is like that. And then what do you do there? They're mostly cabins because everybody wants ocean view. So all around there will be cabins. What other view can you have, And then that also you get sick of if it's a, 1 month cruise. And then what? Then in the middle there are all these halls with balls and malls and entertainment. And then the malls also come and go apparently because they don't show you everything that is there immediately. Because then what are they going to do for the other 28 days? 2 days if everything is over. So they keep certain things they don't sell. And they'll say, okay, this Middle Eastern extravaganza is going to open from 3 to 5 ship time because they don't know which country they are in. And then you please come and take, buy whatever you want. It's all about mercenary things. And then there is food from every culture. Then you go to all the restaurants, and there are enough number of restaurants that you don't exhaust in one day. And then what? And then you go to, in the evening, you go get entertained. And then in between you can go and sleep in your room the size of a matchbox. And then, tiny cabin. Because the idea is you don't spend time there. You don't go to the cruise to sit in your cabin. That you go to sleep. That's all. And in between you just socialize with the other 3,999 people. And then you're just there. And then, you get sick. And of course you don't get along with the people this side and that side. And there are all these problems. This is the earthly cruise, the heavenly cruise, no sickness, no problems, only entertainment. It is just presented so well. Only problem is it's finite. That too is finite. We don't say we don't believe in heaven, because that's also a belief. Only problem is it comes to an end. Like all good things, heaven also comes to an end. So drishteshu, with regard to that which is seen, and anushravikeshu, with that which is heard. Anu has a paramparika, feeling that your parents heard it from their parents, and their parents heard it from their parents, and where did you hear it from? Your parents. So Anu means in keeping with the parampara, in keeping with the tradition, in keeping with all these things. So what about this? So with regard to everything that is heard, drishteshu, shravikeshu, Vishaya Vitrishna Santah. So this Upanishad is for the mumukshus who have developed Vitrishna. What is Trishna?
Thirst.
Longing. Yeah. Thirst. Longing. Thirst here means longing. Vitrishna means a special longing. Yes? No. Vigata Trishna Yasmat, from whom Trishna has fled, is Vitrishna. Like Viraja. Viraja means from whom Rajas has fled. All Ragadveshas have fled. All restlessness has fled. So V also means Vigata. So you have to look at the context. Vitrishna means not a special longing. So the longing has fled from whom? Which longing? Huh? Just look here for what's here and what's hereafter. Don't forget what just was here. Okay, yeah. Don't make the no. The longing for freedom is dependent upon not having a longing with regard to that which is here and now and that which is hereafter. That is what is being said. Don't forget what just left. Because these Sanskrit words and compounds, by the time I explain, if you forget what just went, then we will be here. And we'll never get to what is after here. So, here means the next page. Yeah. After here means what's on the next page or even next paragraph. So, just see the beauty of the language, even though you may not understand it. Just follow it. Drishteshu anushravikeshu vishaya santaha. So here, with reference to all that is seen and heard, which are the two traps, the seen which is right here and the heard which is hereafter, these are the two big traps for Trishna, for Vishaya Trishna, longing with regard to objects. And so for those people who have been able to escape that trap by having Vitrishna, freedom from longing with regard to all objects that are directly available and all objects that are manufactured with the help of punya hereafter. Punya is the vehicle that takes me there. So the ones who are free of the longings, who are they? Mumukshus. And where are the mumukshus? Right here. So vitrishnaha santaha. So for those people who have become free of those longings with regard to everything that's been heard, everything that's been seen, and then what? Upanishad Shabda Vachyam Vakshyamana Lakshanam Vidyam. So, and having approached Upasadya, having approached Upagamya, having approached closely. Upa means near. Having approached closely. What have they approached closely? Vidyam, object of the word approached. What have they approached? The thing they approached should be in second case. What have they approached? Don't you have a copy of the Bhashya? Another book is there? No?
There's one on the arm of the chair. But I don't think it doesn't have the
have the
Bhashya
Bhashya.
because we don't have transliterated.
No, she can read Sanskrit.
But we don't have there's this one.
I will give this.
Yeah, come. Yeah.
Share.
So, Drishta Anushravika Vishaya Vitrishnaha Santaha Upanishad Shabda Vachyam Vakshyamana Lakshanam Vidyam Upasadya Upagamya. So here, these mumukshus who have gained a lot of vairagya. Vitrishna here is vairagya. And with reference to everything that is available here and hereafter, and have approached that which is referred to by the word Upanishad, Upanishad Shabda Vachyam. And what is that? Pakshamana Lakshanam. That which has the characteristics of that which is going to be said soon, not in the hereafter, in the next page or in the Upanishad itself. So, Tam Vidyam, Vakshamana Lakshanam, Tam Vidyam Upasadya, having approached that knowledge. What is that knowledge? That which is referred to by the word Upanishad, Upanishad Shabda Vajya, and that which is got the Lakshana, the characteristic of being elucidated here, meaning in this through the Kathopanishad. Vakshamana Lakshanam, these are the two things that qualify Vidyam. This knowledge having approached. Upasadya, Upagamya. Upa means near. So how do you approach the knowledge? You know? You go near the book. You go near the book and sit down. How do you approach the knowledge? You go to the teacher. So the Upa here is, that's why he repeats it. Upasadya, Upagamya. So the first Upasadya is Sad here to sit, to sit near the teacher. And Upagamya has a kind of an internal approach in the sense of taking that U-turn, which this very Upanishad is going to talk about. To Upa means what? Near. Near what? You can say near the teacher. Having approached the teacher, you sit near the teacher, which is in whom you invoke the knowledge. And because the knowledge cannot be learned from the book, he is going to say that later. So, in whom you invoke as the source of the knowledge, whom you invoke, you sit near the teacher. That is one Upa, but it's repeated, it's explained, it's lengthened here. And the second time when he uses it, we have to see it as approaching the self. Because vitrishnaha santaha, withdrawing from that which is here and the hereafter. Where is the Trishna focus? The Trishna doesn't go away. Where is the Trishna directed to? What is right here, right now. So the Vitrishna which is spread out, the longing that is misdirected and projected on the universe and all things therein, and also beyond the universe, all things that wonderful Swarga, etc., that I have heard about. So everything that is seen and heard, that longing which was scattered among the objects of desire, is now, that longing is now, the floodlight of that longing has been directed at the desirer. This is the Upa. Yeah. So in other words, even before coming to the teacher, before this Upagamanam takes place, Upasadanam, and Upasadanam means what? I learn to abide in that longing without trying to fulfill it, and see that longing. I learn to inquire into that longing in which I appear to be abiding, rather than distracting myself by trying to fulfill that longing, which is like a Grand Canyon, by putting the band-aid of movies, band-aid of marriage, band-aid of children. Yeah, this is what it is. So there are two meanings for the word Upa. One is coming and sitting near the teacher. Sometimes people take that meaning. It's not wrong. Even he says that you have to approach the knowledge, and when he says Upa, reverentially, all that you have to bring in. You don't say, yo teacher, what you're doing today. Let's have a cup of tea and you can teach me what you know. That's not what is that's not what is done here. Yeah. And the reverence, the extent of the reverence comes from my own value for the knowledge. My own value, my own mumukshutvam. The greater the jignasu, the greater the extent of the knowledge. So if somebody does not have Shraddha, poor things, it's not their fault. Or if somebody has little Shraddha, that means what? The Shraddha that is directed towards the teacher. Shraddha means reverence. And Bhakti, directed towards the knowledge and the teacher, is just a reflection of the value for the knowledge within. So when there is Shraddha, Bhakti, humility, that means the desire to learn is kept fueled by the sticks of Shraddha, Bhakti, humility. And the sticks have to be kept dry. You can't have damp sticks in the fire, because instead of creating heat, it will create dampness, and we don't need more dampness. Already samsara is a damp thing, a moldy samsara. One is molded in samsara, pun intended. To get out of this, we need to have dry Shraddha that is kept high in the list of priorities, doesn't sink into samsara. That's why you carry the fire sticks on the head, kept dry. And so Shraddha is kept high on a shelf so that it doesn't come low and interact with the mold. Bhakti is kept high on the shelf. The desire to learn is kept high in the sense of priorities. And the humility, which is really connected to the desire to learn, because I have to keep myself in a place of learning. Till when? Till the knowledge takes place. Till I say, alam, enough. That is what it is. Still, if there are doubts, lingering tears, fears, again Shravanam, and to do Shravanam, I have to keep myself, dry. I have to keep the powder dry, yes. And so, I have to keep the sticks dry. And then what? I feed the fire of mumukshutvam and jigyasutvam with my Shraddha. That is the yajna. That is what is the avahanti yajna. That is called samidha danam. And in fact, all mumukshus, mumukshus need not do yajna, but the samidha dhanam, they do. This is what it's every day ritualizes and symbolizes what I have to do. And what is this yajna? You put the fire sticks and you pray for, and each one denotes, this is my Shraddha, this is my Bhakti, this is my humility towards the book, towards the teacher, towards the knowledge, towards Bhagavan, towards the teaching situation, towards the Guru Parampara, wherever else the Bhakti needs to be directed, towards all those things, and so that I am kept in a place of learning, because it's very important. And to that extent, that really reorients the person. The entire person is reoriented. Because then what I speak, what I talk, all my actions are oriented to bring forth the mumukshutvam. So really speaking, if somebody doesn't have enough Shraddha, this is what I was saying, we can't fault them. We just have to be compassionate and let them be. Why? Because they can't help it. That's not where they are. The more they value their pursuit, the more humble they will become. The more they value this knowledge, the more humble they will become. The more they value the Guru, the teacher as the source of the knowledge, the more humble they become. The more they value everything, the more, in a place of learning they become. So Shraddha is cultivated. And this is what he says, that those mumukshus who are busy cultivating the Shraddha. And what does the cultivation of the Shraddha depend upon? It is directly connected to letting go of desires with reference to everything that is here and hereafter, and then focusing that longing. Of course, the longing won't go. The pursuit may drop. I may stop doing this, that and the other nonsensical pursuits drop. But what happens? The longing grows. Yeah. It groans. And, and so the longing, you have to find a place for this longing. You have to find a way to, address this longing. The longing is addressed as an impostor, as a thief that has come and colonized this self. And even if you don't know that much, The longing is centered on this I, not on the not I. At least that much you know. So you make a U-turn and put the light of enquiry. Shine the shine the light of enquiry where? Right where the longing is. Those are the two things which is in the makeup of the mumukshu. The fire of mumukshutvam is kept burning, and then that is when the two kinds of upagamanam, upasadanam can take place. One is the guru upasadanam, because I don't know and I find myself in a helpless and humble situation. I am ready to surrender to someone who knows the knowledge, and I am ready to surrender and learn from that. I keep myself in a learning situation, and for that, in order to be guided, I am willing to suspend my notions, shraddha, and trust. I trust this person, I trust this source of the knowledge. And how can you not trust? You yourself have picked the source of the knowledge, you know. Yeah, you yourself have picked. You know, the guru doesn't look and see who I will choose now. No, not you, other one. Yeah, you can't, you don't do that. Who goes to the teacher in the Upanishads? Lord Yama came after Nachiketa. No. So this is what it is. So therefore, this is how the Shraddha has to be developed. If there is a problem with Shraddha, you have to say, look, I chose this teacher. Yeah, it's just like the therapist. And the therapy works because you are paying from your pocket. That's the only reason it works. Yeah, because if you were not paying, you would fire the therapist immediately as soon as some transference took place. But since you are paying, and in fact, the therapy works to the extent that you are aware of your validation of the therapist. So the therapist validates you, no doubt. The therapist says, oh, I don't know how you are waking up in the morning, but if I had your life, I would be permanently under the covers. This is a validation. Correct? Yes. This is a validation of your struggles. The therapist has to do that. That's what he or she is paid for. And they do that very well, because the psychological problems are all because of invalidation. So here the therapist validates your choices and says, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, look, you described the 3 things that you are going through right now. Even if there was one thing like that, I would just not even be able to come out, put my head above the water. And here you are functional, you are holding a job, and you are raising children, and you are married, and you have a family, and all these things you are doing so well. And then you say, oh, maybe my life is not so bad after all. Correct? So the therapist has validated you. But the validation of the therapist, the extent to which it will work, is your validation of the therapist. Yeah. If you don't validate the therapist, the validation of the therapist will not work. So the validation of the therapist is incumbent upon your validation of that said therapist. Same thing in the teaching situation. You validate the guru, and that is Shraddha. And if you cannot validate the guru, you have to learn to cultivate that. Or change the guru, no problem. Yeah. Go to someone else. Don't make yourself miserable. Yeah. If you have issues with learning, please go elsewhere. Yeah. This, as much as you have learned here, will bless you. No problem. Go elsewhere. Don't put yourself through the ringer of having to sit and listen to somebody that you cannot trust. What a life. Already in life you cannot trust. Yeah. Either learn to trust, and if that is too much, try someone else. Oh, but the same problem will happen there also. Good that you know. Oh, all right, stay here and work on it. If you know that, then that is good to stay here and work on it. No, I think I should go somewhere else and try. Please. Yes. Go ahead. That's all you have to say. Because why put oneself through a misery of not sitting day after day, year after year, in front of a person who you have no trust for, or who you are always second guessing and always trying to put down? What is the point? You are miserable. And you came here not to be miserable. Yeah. So therefore what? So this the same thing he says in Mundakopanishad also, that the teaching works for someone, Shraddha Bhakti Purassaras Santah, Jignasus, who keep Shraddha and Bhakti in the front, and he is saying the same thing. So the first thing to do is to see what makes a mumukshu, how to cook up a mumukshu. This is the recipe for mumukshutvam. First thing, withdraw all the pursuing longings here. Suspend that. Put a stay order on fulfilling all the longings. Yeah. And then what? Then the longings will not go away, because once they are not fulfilled, they will rage and they will have a tantrum inside. Just look at them lovingly and say, oh, you are a lot of little entities here. Yeah, oh, you are also here. Oh, I hadn't even seen you. Oh, pleased to meet you. Oh. So shine the light on them and say that I'm going to take care of each and every one of you. And try not to wag the finger when you say that. Say that with love and no judgment. This is not a judgment. You have spoilt my life, I'm going to take care of you. No. Just say it lovingly. And then know that you cannot solve all these. You cannot take this whole population of India which is inside, you can't take care of each and every longing. 6 billion little, entities, world population is here. 7 billion now. And so therefore what? You have to take it to a person, because you are taking them to be real. And if they are real, they are all squatters. They are squatting in place of the self without paying rent. Yeah, they are imposters, and they have sneaked in and then made their home where they should not have. They don't own the place. Yeah, Brahman owns the place, and without paying rent to Brahman, they are squatters. And this happens in India all the time. Everybody here, all the Indians living here, they have this spiritual romanticism. I'll buy a plot of land. Where? Somewhere. Hubli. Why Hubli? Oh, it's nice and peaceful. By the time you go there, it will not be peaceful. Yeah. Why? Because everything is, everywhere it's becoming really crowded. Not because you will disturb the peace. Don't take it that way. Hubli, I want to go. So you appoint someone to buy land on your behalf. And you are an NRI. What's an NRI? Non-returning Indian. Never returning. So, you are an NRI. Now what do? You buy a plot of land. And you want a big plot, not near anything else. Yeah. But you don't know what? You don't know that the city is planning to shift the Hubli airport right next to your plot. That is your lot. That's why it's called plot. Yeah. So the word lot is in there. Yeah. That's your lot. But you don't know that. So then when the new airport or big mall or something is going to build right next to your plot/lot, then what happens? Then the whole city comes there, because there are workers, construction workers, all these people, and they say empty plot. Ooh! And in India, occupancy is 9/10 of ownership. Yeah. And then you appoint one watchman to watch the plot. Because he has to come every day, and so that nobody is, squatting there, sitting down there illegally. Because you are not there to come and shoo all those people away. And you can't put a scarecrow, because nobody else. The watchman is the living scarecrow. He is supposed to scare the living daylights of anybody who even looks at the plot with longing. Then what happens? The watchman also needs another watchman. But the watchman has no oversight. Nobody is watching the watchman. The watchman's village is right next to Hubli. The watchman says, I think I'll go spend 10 days in the village. Festivals are coming. And who is going to watch this stupid plot of land? And who knows, And the watchman, without telling, takes leave and goes off to be with his extended family. The workers see one day, oh, no watchman, 2 days, no watchman. And they ask around, and the watchman, he has told everybody that 10 days I'm gone. The workers say this is the time. So first one innocent pole comes up, then 2 poles, 4 poles, and then a tarp on top of that, and pretty soon the whole family is cooking underneath that tarp. And then by this time, it's, your Shani Dasha of the NRI sitting here has started. The Shani has moved into an unfavorable position and has unleashed, a lifelong, several lives long litigation, expenses, all ingredients for instant vairagya. So you see, and then what? That the worker with one tarp calls all his extended family and her extended friends, and very soon you have the whole tenement in your big lot, And then what you have to do? Then you have to, the court. In India, the court is like the court's jester. It's just laughable. In India, if somebody says, I want to grow up and become an attorney, you quickly close their mouth in case anyone is listening. Nobody wants anyone to be an attorney. Because no job satisfaction. You're permanently in litigation. And you are just a glorified briber. You bribe the other attorney with the money that somebody gives you, your client gives you. Your own job, your only job is to take around briefcases that have money and give it to the other attorney and say, let's just forget about this. Because you can't really, the litigation process takes thousands of years. Yeah, there are cases pending from earlier lifetimes. Yeah. So therefore what? There is no hope of going legally like a good citizen. Even though after coming here, you are more in touch with dharma and you want to be a good citizen, but that hope is barred. So what do? You don't go to the bar because there is no point in going through it legally. Then you have to appoint someone who is extremely good with all these things. You don't ask them, what are you going to do? Please don't ask them that. Don't ask them, how are you going to accomplish this? Don't ask them that at all. He says, in 3 days, I'll have your land cleared, but you please dismiss that watchman or come and build something, otherwise I can't do this each time. It will cost you, quite a lot of money, because I have expenses. And so this is called the evictor. Not appointed by the court or the government, self-appointed. Evictor. Evictor of squatters. And in a way, that is what the teacher does. Yeah. You approach the teacher for getting evicted all these longings that have squatted illegally in this antahkarana. And the teacher, through the knowledge, free, without taking any money, gets this evicted for you. Oh, in 3 days? By the 18th of May, all these longings will be evicted? Depends on you. Depends on your Shraddha. If not in 3 days, definitely, that's why we have 3 years. Hopefully 3 years. Maybe by the time the 3 chapters of this Upanishad, who knows? Not long hence. Because you must not be feeding the ones that need to be evicted, you must not hide. If you hide them and give them a little corner of the plot to stay in, the eviction process will fail. So this is what the whole thing. So to be the mumukshu, what do you have to do? You have to first withdraw fulfilling the longings. You have to stay the longings. Stay with the longings. And then you find that you cannot stay with the longings, you would rather stay without the longings. So you bring all the longings. First you shine the light of love on the longings, and then you bring the longings to the teacher. Yeah, because that's what is not said here, but that's what it is. You bring all the longings. And how to bring the longings to the teacher? You long for the knowledge. The force of all the longings are applied to the knowledge. You long for the knowledge so much. You unleash all the longings and direct them, channel them towards this knowledge. This is mumukshu, where the only longing is to be free of longings. That is moksha. The only longing is to be free of all longings. That is moksha. And so here, what is said is that this is the second thing. So first you sit with them and you understand that I have to look not to solve the longings, because the more I solve, the less they are resolved. I have to not solve the longings, but have to resolve it within myself. So you upa yourself first, and then you upa the teacher. Now you know Sanskrit, right? Yeah. Upa means approach. Yeah. Approach closely, without fear and with trust. That is what it is. So that is how it is. So this is the how to cook up the mumukshu, the recipes, the ingredients for mumukshu recipe. And then what? Then that knowledge, which is characterized by everything that's going to be said about this, upasadhya, having approached that knowledge in the form of the teacher, and then that is, we are still unfolding the recipe. Then the next point in the recipe, tan nishthathaya nishthathayena sheelayanti. Sheelayanti, follow. Yeah. Sheelayanti, very interesting word. Follow. Follow means practice. Follow means, there is a kind of a sense of model. No difference between what they are seeking and what they are following. That is what it is. So even in their quest, they model what the Upanishad has to say. Who? These mumukshus. Ni stands for nishtha, ni stands for nishchaya, nishchayena. Ni stands for certainty, nishchaya. Ni stands for nishtha, nitaram sthitihi, abidance. So they abide in these teachings, in what the teacher has, the message that the teacher has to give. They learn to deeply abide in it. Nishthataya. And what was the other one? Nishchayena. With again the shraddha, the certainty that this is going to free me. Yeah. So there is the certainty and there is the nishtha. Nishtha means the ability to abide more and more clearly, more and more deeply, more and more fully in the teaching, as the teaching. Nishthataya. Sheelayanti, practicing for a length of time. It's not like I drop into one class. Yeah. Can you make me a weekend Vedantin? Yeah. So, like there are certain classes you can take to become a Reiki master. I don't know how the ancient form of Reiki was practiced, but right now it is very shaky. And, because in one weekend, somebody told me, what did you do this weekend? I became Grand Master. Of what? Of Reiki. I said, how? Well, you take some intensive courses, like the kind we have in the weekend, You gather at 7:30 and then you finish at 10, Saturday, Sunday. Afternoon also you have one class, like our retreats. And then what? You become a Grand Master of Reiki. This is not like that. The occasional exposure is just, it just may defog the ignorance. But then what happens is that the ignorance is not completely gone. It's been disrupted enough to see that, okay, there is something shining underneath, but it's not totally gone. But that you already know, that the ignorance is disrupted by really what you want. And the ignorance is constantly shaken up in sleep, because in sleep there is no anyatha grahanam, there is no effects of samsara in sleep. So you have enough breaks from ignorance and its broods, even in the everyday life without the teaching, without the teacher. So then what is so special about this? The specialty about this is this nitaram sthitihi and nishthathaya. Means with being intellectually honest with myself, I learn to, expose myself to this knowledge with fervor. Nishtha is a fervor. I put myself in it fully. Because you're not doing the teacher a favor by coming and sitting in front of the teacher. You are doing yourself a favor. Because who wants to get rid of the ignorance? Teacher. No. So, the student is the one who is desirous of getting rid of the ignorance. So, therefore, you are doing yourself a big favor. The greater you can abide in it. Even though it feels good to sometimes, this one teenager asked me this after some series of teenage talks at some camp, summer camp. And the teenager was very honest. The teenager said, when you were talking, I was thinking of what to buy after this camp because my birthday is coming up and this much money I'm going to get from relatives and parents, etc. So I was thinking of what to purchase. And then I thought, no, I should be paying attention to you. But then I felt rebellious and said, oh, she can't read my mind. I'm going to only think of this. And I had a good time, dwelling in my internal realm of desire while you were talking and then feeling that, I have outwitted you. What do you have to say to that? I said, have you really outwitted me? Or have you outwitted yourself? That's what is the question. Because if you go on a little cruise, mental cruise, when the class is going on, and of course sometimes the mind goes away, you cannot help it, but when you bring it back. That's what everybody does. The mind, laya, vikshepa happens right in class. Laya, and laya means that, what I just demonstrated, and vikshepa means and in the beginning the person has no control over the facial muscles, so the person goes like that. And then the person becomes a little clever and the person learns to but still go somewhere internally. The shrota, the one who has the desire to listen, the listener becomes very clever, schools the face to be looking like, oh yeah. But still the teacher can make out. That the person is not available. Yeah. Can make out. And that's all it is. So when the teacher can make out that the person is gone, even though they are nodding brightly, and vigorously, sometimes the nods become too vigorous. To hide a little trip they have taken. So the person is vociferously agreeing to something. And so the teacher can make out. And it's not that the teacher says, oh, I'm so sad. Oh, they have gone away again. Oh, no. Really, whose loss is it? Yeah, the one who went on a cruise, they have missed out. Correct? Yeah. So that's why the cruises have to be controlled. Cruise control. Yeah. In the class. This is what it is. Because you miss out. So this nishtha, nitaram sthitihi, means as long as it takes for the ignorance and its children to unravel, because they are busy building a website of genealogy, avidya, kama, karma, they are writing the history of the whole family. They are doing the family tree. Ignorance, desire, and desire is action followed by desire has a child, action has a child, twins. Papa, Punya. Yeah, and they have another child, Punarjanma, rebirth. So they are busy building a website of their ancestry. They feel they are here to stay. But then what? The Nitaram Sthiti, that the continued abidance, like even in the scope of one classroom, I abide continually. And also in the scope of my life, I learned to abide continually, that nitaram sthitihi, that continued exposure to the knowledge, the repeated exposure, because this ignorance gets a beating, Yeah, this is what it is. It's beaten out of existence. It really doesn't exist. But you have to give it the beating. How to beat something that doesn't exist? Well, that's the fun. Yeah. With an as though whip. Yeah. Called the teaching. That's all it is. And so this is what is called Pasha and Ankusha. That's why if you see Lord Ganesha, one hand Pasha represented by all the things that bind you in samsara, the noose. And the other one Ankusha, the goad to take you out of samsara. Everything is right there. So the Upanishad is that. Upanishad represents that which takes you out of samsara. So nitaram sthitihi, a continued exposure and abidance with shraddha, with attention, and then nishchayena, with trust. That's what it is. And the nishchaya is also a promise that if you do that nitaram sthiti, nishchayena, the ignorance will go away. When? After the break. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. It'll take about 15-20 minutes, we'll come back.